It gives me great pleasure today to welcome Kathryn, who has an avid gardener and cook, and she's been involved in nearly every aspect of raising and preparing food. She's been a chef, caterer, herbalist, seafood marketer, homemaker, and 25 years as an intuitive healer and health coach. Her vast experience has given us a unique perspective, and she hopes her book, Seasoned with Gratitude, 250 recipes and blessings celebrating the greater nourishment of real foods, inspires renewed interests in the benefits of cooking at home. The book fosters environmental and spiritual awareness around our very primal connection with the natural world, all the while encouraging others to rediscover a key missing ingredient for healthy, home-cooked meals, which is gratitude. And I would like to tell you, you can buy this book at Eagle Harbor Books. So today we're going to focus on light appetizers as it's New Year's Eve and what's in the garden, in your pantry, freezer, or in the refrigerator that we can throw together. So Kathryn, really welcome today, and we're looking forward. I wish we could get the smells as well as the tastes, but we're glad to have you.
Well, thank you, Janet. I'm glad to be here, and it's been fun to think about where am I drawing from? What do I want to work with today? And so what I did was I looked in the pantry, and I looked in this greenhouse that we have, because most of the garden, of course, is already complete for the year, but we had beets in the greenhouse. So that ran into another dish that came to mind. And in the search and seek of what I had available, I decided, it's so common for us to just grab cheeses and salamis and crackers and things that are heavy in that nature for an appetizer. And so we don't have to think much about it ahead of time. We just put it out. But it's really fun to begin now to think about how January is coming around. It's usually my month to eat lighter and think about my weight, especially the weight that came on in 2020, which I can only say added up. And so one of the other things that came to mind was, how could I draw from dishes that are from different parts of the world? So with that in mind, it really changed what I would be looking at today. And so I'm gonna start with what was in the garden, and that was a dish, a vegetable, beet. And I'm going to show you what I did for the display. So here we go. You let me know if you're seeing it okay.
Yes, we can see that. That's perfect. Oh,
okay. Wow. So what I was doing with this dish is trying to focus on color. And this is where I found a yam in the pantry. I often have a root vegetable in there. And I found beets in the garden. And so I roasted both of them and then added some grated ginger and juice of lime and a can of 3/4 of a can of coconut milk. And so I used probably four medium beets that I roasted, one yam or sweet potato. And then after they roasted and cooled, I blended them in the blender, and it makes this marvelous, it can be eaten hot or cold, but it's a lovely dip, and it has great color, and it's super healthy for us. So good fats. Beets are a root vegetable that helps our hearts and vascular systems. And when you blend it with the yams and the coconut milk, it's a whole different taste. So when people think, oh, I never eat beets or I don't choose to, this is one of the ways that you can bring that into your life. And another thing is, what vegetables do we often not have on our vegetable tray? A little bit of fennel, red cabbage. Red cabbage is pretty fun because it's got such a bright flavor. And small chunks of zucchini, little fingerlings of zucchini, along with the regular things like carrot and celery and peppers. But does that not look like the colors that we want to know about as we begin to shift our focus to potentially lighter foods?
Kara, may I interrupt to tell everybody that you will put your recipes, send them to the Senior Center so they will be available when Reed posts them, probably with the YouTube tomorrow.
Yes, because usually I don't even have time to do that, but because tomorrow's New Year's Day, I do have time to do that. So that's a very fun dish. Another thing that drew me from the pantry was something I had never made before, and my neighbor has an orchard with a lot of peach trees in it. A number of us in the neighborhood bought peaches from him this year, and we were making everything peach. So what I did, let me grab it here, is I made a peach salsa. And so that salsa, and I'm not sure if you can see it, it's got onion and cilantro, chopped peaches, chopped bell peppers, and chopped onions in it. And I actually canned it. And so it adds a really nice sweetness to it. And with cream cheese and Triscuit, it's an excellent, quick hors d'oeuvre that you can have any time of the year. And this one, I have to admit, is probably the only thing I'm going to show you that's not in the cookbook. But I almost never eat Triscuits. It's just something that kind of went off my radar. But I found that the crunch of these salty kind of hay-like, excuse the sound of the wrappers, but I will dish up a couple here. Let me grab a knife. And it makes for a lovely kind of slightly spicy and sweet dish. And I'm going to lay one out here and turn this so you can see once again what I'm working with. And let me know if you can see it.
We can.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
All right. It's just the combo of salt and sweet and heat, but not overpowering heat. So that's a real fun one to consider. Again, where there's a surprise that you have an overabundance at one season, it makes for benefits for the holidays and other times when you're suddenly surprised and needing to come up with something new. And this salsa would also be really good on like a white fish or a baked fish after it's been cooked. I wouldn't cook it with it on it. So the other pieces are thinking about what you have in your pantry. Like, did you make pickles this year? Here's one of my jars of pickles, and we forget how precious that is to people that never can. And I had a compliment from my daughter and her beau a couple of months ago. They said they had bought pickles at the store, and they were so nasty in comparison of what they're used to eating that they threw them away. And we had a similar thing where we had a bounty of green beans that were coming out our ears because we had so many. And so I marinated green beans and actually had that same daughter come over, and we added garlic and hot red pepper, and of course pickling spices to the green beans, and marinated those. And I've been pulling those out regularly, but that's a very healthy appetizer that's available. And these products that have some vinegar to them, they're all very supportive of our health. So it's a good thing to eat those fermented foods. I wanted to take us to another part of the world. And so I went to the appetizer section of my cookbook. And in that appetizer section, you will find something called larb, Thai larb. So in looking at what would possibly be a recipe from Thailand that would be yummy and healthy, and I reduced some of the, I reduced the recipe in half, and I only used one type of meat in the recipe itself. And Carol, are you looking up recipes? That Thai larb? Let me see if I can give you a page number.
$159.
Yes, good job. So instead of doing the combined meats, which actually I find is really nice, when I just use the ground turkey or maybe supplement ground chicken, it's a drier, it's a little bit drier than I love. And yet I do make it with just one of the meats. In my cookbook, I mention mixing like ground goat or buffalo, or you could mix ground lamb and ground chicken and things of that nature, where you mix a red meat with a whiter style meat, and it tends to give more moistness to the recipe, more flavors and more complexity. So I will give you a sense of this. And so this is served by simply taking a lettuce leaf and putting some of the mixture in it and kind of rolling it around, and really you basically shove it into your lips and just enjoy. It's a little bit spicy, but you can control that by what you decide to put in your recipe. Like in this, it called for 4 Thai green chilies that are mixed in with 2 pounds of meat. So in reducing that, normally we would use like 2 chilies, or if you want things not so hot, maybe use half a chili of the little Thai chilies. So you have control always of what you want to put in that. But let me give you a look-see at what we're working with. Can you see it?
Oh, yes.
All right. Lots of herb, mint, and cilantro. In this one, I happen to have a lot of basil left in my refrigerator, and so I added basil to it. Recipes to me are mainly ideas, and then we can go from there. And so to serve it would be a matter of putting a little bit in your lettuce cup. And it's a great way to then have each person participate. This one's a little bit harder if you choose to, in these COVID times, to make little appetizer plates for people. And I have done that. I had this Tree Sisters group I'm involved with. There was about 5 of us. And on my covered patio a couple of weeks ago, I spaced out 5 chairs, And I made appetizer bowls for each person. And then I measured between the center of each chair to make sure we were 6 feet apart. And I turned on the outside heat heater that we bought during this time. And so we were able to have a delightful outside, still halfway warm place to have appetizers and share the holiday season. But this dish is a little bit harder because if it sits in the leaves very long, it'll get too wet and be harder to pick up. Lovely flavors. And again, it takes us to Thailand, and that's kind of fun. So do we have anybody on this screen right now that enjoys Thai larb when they go to a Thai restaurant? Good.
I do.
Yeah, and it's really easy to make. I've even left it warm and served it to my husband and I instead of as a cold dish. And we just devour it. Maybe we have some buttered rice on the side and consider it as a warm dish. So that's something that I enjoy leaning on. And I've often had people, when I was a caterer, request that couldn't I just make some for them to take home? Which, of course, was not the case, and else they stayed and helped with the cleanup of that catering job. This dish, to give you a little bit more idea of what's in it, along with mixed meats, is garlic, onion, limes, fish sauce. Green onions are also used, mint leaves, cilantro, Thai chilies, and of course, buttered lettuce. And buttered lettuce has been on special, I think, at the Town and Country of late. It's been a better price than usual. Yes. So that's a good one. But again, that idea was generated because I found I had a pound of frozen turkey meat in the freezer. And I had an abundance of basil, and I thought, I probably can get away with adding that to the dish too, and still staying with these Thai flavors. And I also had an abundance of Thai chilies that were dried from our greenhouse. We were exploring what might grow in a greenhouse in its first year before the soil really gets to a point that more things can grow. And the Thai chilies did really well. And I was like, how in the world will I use this many? So I did begin with, let's go back to larb, Thai larb. And staying with the idea of how can I kind of go around the world with these appetizers, I came back to a recipe that I very much enjoy called muhammara, and it is from Syria. And here I am digging through the book again to see where it might be. Okay. It's Syrian roasted red bell peppers and walnuts, toasted walnuts. And with that, of course, is scallions, or also known as green onions, lemon juice, cumin. You can imagine cumin needs to be in a dish from Syria. I use a pomegranate molasses, and that's not so easy to find. It only has 3 teaspoons of it, or a tablespoon of it. But I have made it by buying pomegranate juice and adding a little sugar and just making up some tablespoons of a sweetened kind of syrupy pomegranate. I've also done it by taking pomegranate seeds and smashing them and getting the juice out of them and adding sugar and just briefly, like for 2 minutes, cooking it. So I end up with a little syrup. But it does make a difference in the flavor. It has red pepper flakes, which of course you can control how hot or not that you want your dish, and toasted walnuts, fresh breadcrumbs, and This dish is normally eaten with bread in Syria and in places like that in that part of the world. But in order to lighten it up, I also put vegetables with it that would be kind of fun and be a bright color. So let me grab a spoon. And I'll place it up here where you can see what I'm working with. Is it showing up?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the vegetables I chose for this to make things just a little more fun is jicama. Jicama is, you can still find it. They keep moving it around at Town and Country, so it's harder to find, but it has a nice crispness to it. And I just peel off that skin or slice off the skin, the rough looking skin, and then cut it into whatever shape is left from that jicama, because they come in kind of a big, dried looking bulb thing. And another piece that I began, and here is your colorful dip. You can see it takes on kind of an orange shade with the red, roasted red bell pepper and toasted walnuts. The other thing I thought was kind of fun is a yellow pepper, the flat of a cucumber, and then of course baguette or fusilli is excellent with it. And it, to me, it's hard to resist. It has just lovely flavors. If you are not allergic to nuts, this one is an excellent hors d'oeuvre and healthy for us as well. Have I had anybody on screen that's familiar with this particular dip? It's well worth trying, and I find that if I use the bottled roasted peppers, then I usually have them on hand. I normally keep walnuts in one of my drawers in the kitchen, and so that's one you can back up on. We often have lemons. You know, lemons are a pretty common thing, and cumin in our kitchens. So from there, other than grabbing a loaf of baguette or some sort of really tasty bread, you have what you need quite readily in your can cupboard.
So, Kathryn, if you roast the red pepper, would you do it in the oven or on a burner?
I have a gas stove, so I'm capable of roasting on a burner and just turning it with tongs.
Yes.
But you know, we don't always have red bell pepper in our crisper drawers, and so having that jar in the fridge with roasted bell peppers is a good cheat and makes it for a fast one. And this is so yummy. I find it can be rather filling, like maybe I make a meal of it. I have all these vegetables, I have bread, I have walnuts as my protein. So it's a lovely one to have, and it does keep well. Both this and the roasted beet one I can pretty much snack on for a week. Yeah, oh, and I haven't frozen this particular dip before, but I have frozen tightly the beet and yam dip, and I make sure that I don't have any airspace. I try to put it in a container where the lid's down pretty tight to it, and it comes out lovely even months later. So that's a good one to be aware of. And I thought it would be important to honor the Northwest, and I was trying to think of, okay, what would be a good dish unexpectedly from the Northwest? And so I went back to my cookbook and looked at the Northwest style Dungeness crab cakes. And of course, crab is so expensive. It's really a luxury. But last summer, my brother-in-law up at Neptune Beach, north of Bellingham, he and a friend had gone crabbing late in the season, and they came in with so many crabs, and I happened to be up there, and they sent like 7 crab home with me. So I did need to do some research, and I discovered that if I froze like a pound in individual bags and poured milk over them, it keeps the crab from drying out and losing all its wonderful flavor. And I had too many experiences where I was aware that crab, if you do freeze it, it just loses everything and it gets so stringy. But I found, after reading a number of sites, that the milk was a potential. And so yesterday I thawed the crab and discovered it indeed saved the flavor of the crab, kept it still moist and alive. It is, of course, a little bit less, I'd say it goes a little bit to the stringy part, which crab meat will do, but nothing like what I had experienced in other freezing attempts or in like canned crab. So the flavor and even the big leg pieces were still very much alive and well, and I was delighted to find that I could use it. And so I went ahead and made the Northwest style Dungeness crab cakes, and I'll show you what that looks like next. So of course, I look at the recipe and I think, great, I've got everything I need. I just took 2 or 3 pieces of bread and I took my grater and I grate fresh breadcrumb on there, and I mixed it all up. And then I read the bottom of the recipe because I hadn't made them since last summer. And I read, oh, now I need 1.5 cups of dried breadcrumb. And I don't have that. So it was what are we going to do next? I thought, so I could possibly toss them in cornstarch, and that might give a nice crispy outside crunch. Or, and I kept digging, I found some panko. And so I tried panko on them for the first time, which is also a lovely way to use a dried breadcrumb type thing. So here are pictures of what I was working with. So this is before they're cooked. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we can. They look delicious.
So I've just got these little kind of balls of them, and I've cooked a few. And then here, let's see if I can bring that into view. Here are some already cooked, and some of the sauce, some topping for them as well. Can you see what I'm showing?
Absolutely, we can. You're starting to make me very hungry. They look delicious.
Well, I think that is on purpose. Because your timing is this 11:30 to 12:30, so of course we all get mighty hungry by then. But to give you a sense, as I mentioned, I didn't have a container or I didn't have fresh breadcrumb necessarily, but I took, I actually, because it was frozen crab, it had more moisture in it from being in the milk, even though I strained and pressed it. So I ended up adding probably an extra 3/4 cup of breadcrumb. And I simply made the breadcrumb by taking pieces of bread and grating it on my cheese grater. Yeah. And then there's 2 eggs in the recipe. There's a couple tablespoons of mayo, green onion, red bell pepper, parsley. I add a little dried mustard, a dash of cayenne if I choose to. This time I did not because I had other dishes that had plenty of heat in them. And a little salt. And then when it was time to cook them, I cooked them in olive oil. And I did toss them at the end in the panko. So one thing I will mention was it's important to, once you put your crab mixture together, to give it an hour or so in the refrigerator so they can firm up. But that's an important piece to it.
Yeah.
And I think that these, I might even test a couple and see if I can freeze a couple after they're made into crab cakes and if that will work. But it'll depend on if my husband goes crazy and really keeps eating them or if we end up with some family or someone showing up. So that brings me to the Northwest, to what is in your cabinet, what is in your freezer or pantry or refrigerator that you might be drawing from. And I'd love to put that open to the group so we can have a little conversation.
Can you tell me what you are serving with the crab cakes?
Oh, yes. I made up a spicy Wild West sauce, and it has green onion and garlic and mayo and tomato paste and the juice of a lime. Mm-hmm. And then a little bit of cayenne and salt. And I did keep it quite mild because I had other dishes that had heat in them. And again, I try to make that up an hour ahead so that it gets a little time to chill and develop its complexity of flavors. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll start. My husband's specialty is making crab cakes. Needless to say, they've all been eaten and we don't have any crab. But I always serve it with a mango salsa, mango chutney that I make. And I cheat because I get the mangoes already cut up from Trader Joe's. But I used to just grate the mango, a real mango, and do that. Because I like something sweeter with my crab cakes.
I really appreciate that, Janet. It'll make me try it with the peach salsa, which I made for the first time this past summer. And what a great idea. Yes. Thank you.
Kathryn, I'm making a cheesecake, but I don't know what we're having for dinner. So anyhow, we have cauliflower, and I'm not really very inventive. It's either in crudité or steamed with some cheese on it. Do you have any suggestions for cauliflower?
Well, I do love roasted cauliflower, I have to admit, where I'm just tossing it in olive oil and salt and pepper, and then putting it in the oven for however long, until it looks right to you. It's probably 20-25 minutes. And getting it that nice crispiness. So I might put it on 400, get a little bit of a crispiness to one side. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with steamed cauliflower just done in with a good dose of butter and salt and pepper and maybe some sprinkled parsley. Another way we use cauliflower, and we used to do this more in the early days of our lives, was we would parboil the cauliflower in milk. And then once it got a little bit softer, we would take that out, and then we would stir fry it in a little skillet with some butter, parsley, and salt and pepper, and sprinkle we actually sprinkled grated egg over it, and just put it in the bowl, the serving bowl, with grated boiled egg. And it's yummy, I have to admit.
Oh my gosh! Oh, I'm going to have to try that.
It's really yummy, and I'm thinking that was a recipe from a French chef whose name skips me. Hang on just a moment.
Okay. Well, that's fun. And I wonder what the milk does to do, to parboil it in milk. I wonder what the milk does to the cauliflower. Huh.
Yes,
That's
I'm
fascinating.
curious. Yeah.
Yes.
I have roasted cauliflower, and I have made a dipping sauce with it by adding spices, like Kathryn did it with beets. I have made a cauliflower dip.
That sounds good. Yes.
There was a recipe in the Seattle Times color supplement about a year ago. I've used that several times.
That sounds divine.
Yes, it
But
does.
it's not as pretty as your beet dip. I'm anxious to try your beet dip. It tastes good.
So it's a Pierre Franny.
Okay.
Let's see. Can you see this book?
We can.
Yeah, I see
It's
the
in about
name.
6 pieces.
Okay. 60-minute gourmet, Pierre. Huh.
It's very old. I mean, it's just coming apart all over the place
That's because you love it.
because we loved it. And we, especially in the mid 80s, we cooked out of this book a lot. And I'm just going to check for 1 small head of cauliflower and breaking it up into florets. We put it in a saucepan, added 4 cups of water, brought it to a boil. Let me find the milk, 1/4 of a cup of milk and some salt. So it wasn't complete milk, although sometimes we have done it half water, half milk.
Oh, okay.
And so that's cooked for like 10 minutes. And then the thing is, you don't want to turn it into mush. And then we made sure we had a boiled egg available, a hard-boiled egg that we put through a little sieve. So it was really fine, like riced boiled
Okay.
egg.
Yeah.
And we heat a tablespoon of butter in a skillet and added the cauliflower and tossed those pieces just to give them color. And then sprinkled it with the sieved egg and chopped parsley. And of course, salt and pepper. And that's
This is so it's intriguing. What an interesting recipe.
It is a lovely recipe to fall back on, especially if you have people that like their cauliflower, like with cheese sauce or something heavier. This is a good alternative. And I would imagine it's a little bit lower in calorie.
Yeah, you're not all cheesed out. You have the
Exactly.
protein from the egg.
Yeah.
Yes, and sometimes cheese sauce competes with the other protein that you're serving at the table. So yeah.
Well, thank you.
Good job. Any other questions?
Okay, so
Well, we got some Brussels sprouts that I want to serve tonight, and our idea is to cut them in half and put them in a bowl with some
olive oil.
Meyer lemon olive oil, and then salt and pepper, and then just roast them. But I don't know if you have other suggestions for something like Brussels sprouts.
You do.
Well, that sounds lovely. I think that the Myers lemon will be delicious with that in combo. Another thing that I do at times is I'll chop up 2 or 3 pieces of bacon, chop them up pretty fine, and I mix that in and then roast it with that. Yeah.
So the bacon, you cook the bacon, then crumble it?
No, I just chop it pretty fine. Yeah. So it doesn't have big chunks to cook. You know, it cooks and roasts with the Brussels sprouts.
Okay, so it's not cooked. It's just bacon.
Right.
Fine. Oh, okay. That sounds good. And I have some good bacon. Good.
Yeah, a pepper bacon is kind of fun with that too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sounds good.
yes. Thank you.
So
And we're
what
having
else?
it with crab.
You're having it with crab?
Yeah.
With like crab legs or?
Well, crab legs. I mean, we just decided to splurge. It is a splurge, you know. but yeah. I think it'll be good.
That sounds lovely.
Well, I'm going to go look for your book.
Yes, I'm going to go look for your book.
It's a fun book. I often tell people it's like 3 books in one. I took about 10 years to write it, drawing on recipes from when I was a caterer back in the Caribbean years and also in Seattle. And then 20 some years of cooking for my family here on the island. And I wanted to, one of my intentions with the book was to bring us back to gratitude as one of our seasonings, and that love that we bring to our cooking, to get us back in the kitchen and to remember that food is life, giving life to create more life. And so everything we eat is life, and that feeds us. And I often say at some point we will feed it. And so I say to people, I want my remains to be life-giving. And in fact, I want to be the best feast those bugs and grubs ever had. And so I want to give back at that point in my life. And hope that I can arrange to do that. We hid in boxes for a long time, like we wouldn't disintegrate, but at some point we have to. And so why not enliven a tree or feed the soil?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Kathryn, I'm really thrilled that you came and did this. I am going to run out and get your book, because hopefully within like 4 or 5 months, we can have people over to share again. So, because it's nice to cook for other people, particularly as we've been cooking for ourselves so long. We need a shot in the arm, and you've given us a shot in the arm today. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, good. I wish I could give you a shot to the lips as well.
We'd all be over.
Because I likely, other than cooking the rest of the crab cakes tonight or tomorrow, I'll likely be getting tired of these foods after 2 to 3 days. And I'll be needing to think of something else. So it could be that I do freeze some of my beet coconut milk puree. And by the way, that is an excellent dish. It's in the vegetable section of the cookbook as a hot dish, and it's lovely with turkey, like for Thanksgiving dinner, or a roast chicken. That's an excellent dish to have on hand. Another thing that I did this morning was I went through my crisper drawers, and I don't know about you, but most people that want to cook end up with things getting lost in the crisper drawers, right?
Yes.
But I knew that I'd probably be participating in champagne tonight, and things that would need to be, I need a reboot tomorrow. And so I made a potassium broth for us that I will strain and put in jars. And then in the next 2-3 days, or maybe even all week, I can drink a couple of big mugs of this potassium broth. And what is included in that, because minerals are what life is about. And so I added a large onion, 2-3 carrots, a crown of broccoli, a little bit of cauliflower, some chopped up cabbage, stems of a bunch of parsley, potato. I put in a couple potatoes. Basically, any vegetables. I think I even found a couple rutabagas. Any vegetables in there, and then I'll start with new vegetables. I really kind of cleaned it out, chopped them up, put it in a large pot, covered it with water, and then I cooked it for about an hour. And now I will strain it out and add a little tamari or soy sauce. And it's an excellent way to revive our health. It's just such a big dose of potassium and all sorts of minerals. And especially if you add some greens to it as well when you're cooking it. But you're straining it, and then I've used it to heal from some really serious illnesses before, where I needed to bring my body back up to the highest level of health it could be. And potassium broth is Excellent. So it's just load up the vegetables, put them in a large pot.
Potassium broth.
Yeah. And that's actually in the stocks section of the cookbook, under soups and stocks. Let's see, it is on page 192.
Oh, wow.
When you
Yeah.
strain it, is it like cheesecloth or how do you strain it?
Actually, because I don't cut them very small, I just, big chunks. I just strain it in a big strainer. I don't worry about cheesecloth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if
That
little
sounds
chunks
very-
come through, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I nibble on the vegetables that are coming out. I might nibble on those, throw a little salt and pepper on them. It's still good. It's just that most of their vitamins and minerals are in the broth now. So they're pretty much empty.
Mm-hmm.
How
Just
long
some
do you
fiber.
cook it?
I cook it about an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't think it's so important what you put in as long as you got a variety of vegetables. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
good.
But
That's good.
that's a good one to have on hand. Maybe you make it once a month, or maybe you make it every couple months. But if ever you were feeling sick, or you have any kind of illness at all, when we add more minerals to our diet, it's going to increase our health and make us steadier and more balanced in what the body is needing most.
That's great.
So that's the health tidbit for today.
Yes, that's a nice start to the new year. So thank you. That will give us something to do. So Kathryn, it's been wonderful. I really appreciate it. And the book is called Seasoning with Gratitude, and I'm off to Eagle Harbour Books. So thank you, everybody. Next
Thank
week,
you for
we're going
coming.
to find out what we can do to keep our
Thanks, Kat.
houses less cluttered.
Thanks, Janet. Thank you.
So
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year. Be well and enjoy your kitchen and cooking.
Here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
Carolyn. Oh, righty. Okay. Carolyn, are you there? Carolyn Hart here.
Yep, she must have left. And I never know how to quit this.
Still there.
I just turned it off.
Carolyn, I'm going to call you at home. Okay.
I'll turn you off.
Okay. I'm going to call you though about the food.
Good.
Okay. Got it. Okay, we're there.